chips?
I did.
Ciao tutti. We have a slight problem. Thierry has eaten all of the Lays.
Let me fix it. Can you please find someone with Lays to watch the game with us? Do you have any Lays?
No Lays.
No game.
Do you fancy pizza?
No Lays.
No, that's empty. We already have one empty here. We don't need that. Hey! Finally! Please come down.
Welcome back to another episode of Off the Clock. My name is Tepiso. Before we do anything, before we get into any sort of delicious conversations, please like the video and subscribe to the channel so that you don't miss out on anything. Dad, how's it?
Good, yeah, that's good. Riaan, thank you very much. Very happy to have you here. Really spending the time. I came all the way from Cape Town. Do you want to start by maybe giving a cover story of who you are?
Sure.
And then we will get straight to know you better and chill.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for having me. It's been an interesting morning with the Medtronic team, and now this environment as well. Lovely to meet your daughter. My story is a simple one. I've worked for two, but I call it four companies. So I was born in 1974. I studied and grew up in a town called Worcester. Studied at Stellenbosch. I qualified as a CA, and then I started my corporate career at, in those days, Pioneer Foods. And Pioneer Foods has been my home from a career point of view since. In 2020, Pioneer Foods was acquired by PepsiCo. So I call that the fourth company that I've worked for, Coopers and Lybrand being the first one. They changed their name to PwC. That's two, but it's the same company. And then obviously Pioneer Foods got acquired, and now I work for PepsiCo. I've got a finance background. I spent a reasonable stint in the finance world, and then moved into general management in 2007, and I've been in general management since. And for the last now 13 months, I'm the CEO of PepsiCo South Africa. I'm married to my wonderful wife Talita. I've got two children, Tian and Kayla. They're 22 and 20. I play a bit of golf. I enjoy good wine. Obviously hard work comes with the territory.
Okay, so it looks like you're in a very good space there. You're eating well. But I mean, running such a big company, I'm sure brings a lot of, a lot of joy, but a lot of pain, in terms of stress, sleep.
Yep.
How much hours do you do of sleep a night?
I've been able to cope with between 5 and 6, which is probably not sustainable, but I've had a long career at that type of number. It does catch up at some point. But the quality of your sleep is for me more important than the quantity. So making sure that I'm fully switched off. I have got some odd things that I do to get my mind off work.
Odd things?
I shared with the team. I farm online in a game called Heyl, and I garden because these days most of us has got artificial grass at our home. So I do play Gardenscape a little bit for about half an hour most evenings if I'm not traveling, if it doesn't get too late, and that is a real call it stress relief in terms of just forgetting about everything. If you work in the type of industry that I do, we're a consumer goods company. Fast moving consumer goods, specifically food and beverages. So even as a consumer, whenever I'm on holiday or after hours, I'm confronted with either our own products or those products of our competitors. Now we've got a vast range of products from wonderful Simba Lays snacks right through White Star Super Maize Meal, Specco Rice, Sasco bread and flour, Bacomo breakfast cereals, liquid fruit juice. I mean, we touch every home in this country in some shape, manner or form. And as a result, I see all of those products wherever I go. And I also see the competitors' products. So the ability to switch off is few and far between because it's in your face the whole time. If you're in other industries, when you walk out of the door, you switch off. Unless you go in your instance to a hospital, perhaps, Peter, which hopefully doesn't happen often. Whereas in my world, I see it the whole time. So the biggest thing that I try and do is to just break the thinking. And sometimes that means spending time with my kids that are now becoming adults, because they talk about completely different things. They've got different interests. I play a bit of golf. I try and play golf with some friends or that are completely outside of my industry. And I play the games to just do brain dead stuff sometimes, or nearly.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you just said something very interesting that because of the industry that you're in, you're so much brand aware. When you go to friends, you mentioned earlier that you
yes,
like
I
to
do.
braai and all that. I mean, when they kind of at a braai table or next to the fire, how do you react to competitor products?
No, not well. No, not well. I have thrown stuff in dustbins. I have sent replacement packages, and I have indicated that if I see that again, I'm not coming again. So I have lost one or two friends along the way. No, not really. But listen, you have to be passionate about what you do, and that's probably the best way of expressing your passion. So if I come to your home and I do find, and I'm not going to mention in a podcast which competitors, but which other bread you find and what other rice you find and what other maize meal you find, there will be a conversation. And you can just imagine if for whatever reason in my home there's something that we don't produce and a competitor does, for whatever reason, sometimes stuff are not available. Then we would rather go without it. So the family has borne the brunt over the years, not often, but once or twice that, no, you can't have that, sorry.
So you guys only shop for the stuff that's part of your brand?
If it's in that category, absolutely. Okay. Absolutely. Okay. No, 100%. We do a little bit of private label as well. We do Woolworths juice. We do Woolworths bread, for example. So if you're a Woolies shopper, then obviously Woolies don't carry everything as branded goods.
Yeah.
Then brands are allowed that's not owned by us, but at least it's still our product that's inside. Absolutely.
I love the loyalty.
That has to be. I mean, it pays the bonus at the end of the year, so it makes a contribution. And of course, as leaders in any business, we have to lead by example. Very passionate about our products.
Yeah. You mentioned you play golf.
I do.
My husband also plays golf. Is that an activity you do with your son in particular, or do you do it with both of your children?
My daughter never picked up golf, but my son did at a very young age. He was pretty good when he was young, and then he kind of lost interest in the game. But over the last, call it 10 years, he's now turning 22. The last 10 years, he's picked it up again. He plays pretty well, and yes, it's quality time. For me personally, it takes up a lot of time. So when he's not around, I mean, I really have to find my way with my friends. We're like a standing four-ball that plays twice a month, maybe 3 times if we're lucky, if we're very lucky. But especially during holiday times, I spend a lot of quality time with my son, and it's a fantastic connection because you're alone for a long time and you're not distracted by all those things.
Yeah.
And in our type of roles, you have to make, and you guys would know, you have to make those conscious decisions and time investments. And if you find vehicles that drives that, like playing golf for 5 hours, that's fantastic. So yeah, I do.
Do you, just to follow on Tepi question, do you spend time with your daughter as well? Just her alone, not
yeah, absolutely. But she's got other interests. She's a wannabe chef, I think. She doesn't clean that well in the kitchen when she prepares foods, but the food is exceptional. So she enjoys
she cooks well.
She does. She enjoys the finer things from a dining perspective. So if you really wanna now enlighten and surprise her, then you take her somewhere fancy for dinner. So we would go out and do something like that, or go to the shops together. But invariably, it ends up in eating and not buying things, because those are stuff of the earth. Our world is driven by experiences. And going to a fancy restaurant and doing a 6-course meal, that's an experience.
What about you? Can you cook? I mean, you find a way.
I actually can. I had. If people ask me what would have been alternative career paths, okay, so one of the questions on your Google security, and I'm giving it away now, is your dream job, if it's not your current job. So I wanted to be a golf resort director. So I wanted to run a golf resort, holiday resort with multiple courses. That's the one. The second one is I wanted to have my own restaurant because I absolutely love food and I love preparing food. So I can
It's not too late. I mean,
obviously,
I can still do it.
no. Maybe in a second career, you never know.
Or second life.
Or a third career or life. So yeah, the restaurant industry I would have found interesting, and I absolutely enjoy preparing food because it's another sociable occasion, and you get to switch off, and you get to create things that people enjoy. There's nothing like creating joy for people. So I can braai anything. I can do a curry. I'm pretty decent at pasta, but if you give me the raw ingredients, I'll scratch something together. Keep on tasting until it tastes well. So I'll do that. And just as an aside, the third job would have been a pool boy because you can give me any green pool, I can fix it. But that's just completely off the track.
Your party trick.
Yeah. My party trick is to get a green pool blue again.
Okay, cool. And your wife, how do you spend time with her?
Well, she looked after the kids for the last 21 years. I mean, we do quality time for us is typically on a Friday evening. We don't have friends over after a long week for me. Invariably, friends or get time on a Saturday or maybe even a Sunday sometimes. But on a Friday evening, I try to keep it close with the family. We would light a fire and have a glass or 3 or 4 of wine, and sometimes we listen to the irrigation system starting up the next morning at 4. But typically it's on a Friday evening. During the week, it's very difficult. I mean, it's early mornings, it's flights, late back, business dinners and engagements. So typically we would try and make time on a Friday. Because of where the kids are, we're now stepping into the space of having more
Empty
holidays.
nest.
Well, for sure. And therefore, but with empty nest, and that's a massive adjustment, as you would have experienced.
Yeah.
You do create more opportunities to go away for a weekend or go on holiday. We've never been on holiday alone. I mean, we had kids young and they were there from the start. So kids had always been around. And now it's the first time we were like, oh, it's just the two of us because they're not coming here. They're somewhere else, either a boyfriend, a girlfriend, or a trip or whatever.
So you're excited about this phase of your life? Or nervous?
To be honest with you, very nervous actually. Because it's been such a long journey without having it. So there is an element of having to reconnect and reestablish conversation to a certain degree. Because it's completely different to what it was. There's always a child or an event related to that somewhere in the mix.
Yeah.
But now you get home and it's just, how does that song go? Just the two of us.
Yeah. Really
just the two of us. That's a big adjustment. I'm not frightened about it. I'm not scared about it unduly, but it's a big adjustment. That's definitely the case.
You telling me that?
You know that. How did you cope with it? Maybe I can start asking questions.
Yeah, you can.
How did you cope with it?
Yeah, look, I mean, it's every phase. I think it's quite difficult. You get a little bit of separation anxiety from that, and slowly, fortunately, my son is still staying with us, but in kind of in brackets because he's there, but he's not there. And let me explain that. He's like always in his room. He's kitted with a PlayStation, the chair, the earphones, and all that. He's lost in that world. He's a gamer.
Yeah.
And we go out to eat, so it's like, I'm not going, I'm not coming. We happy that he's there, but he's actually not there. And we started taking holidays on our own, reconnecting. Actually, it's very nice. I mean, getting to know each other better again, it's... I enjoy it more. But I mean, once a month, we'll have a family lunch or kind of a meeting and get to connect. It's a different place.
Yeah, I mean, many people find different souls, but I think what's critically important, irrespective of your life stage, is you have to be a person. You have to be a person on your own.
Yes.
You have to have your own identity, and my identity has been formed around my career mostly. I can't hide from it. If I step out of this career, I will have less or fewer contacts and friends than what my wife would have because her world looks completely different. and she's created that world for herself, where she's the valued one and the admired one by all the friends and the people in the town. She's always there to help them. And I think if you're in that space, no matter what happens within the house and the home, you'll be happy. And it's comfortable for everybody to be comfortable in their own skin within that space.
It's very true.
But to engage and to suddenly realize, oh, it's you. I haven't seen you for the last 22 years. That's a big adjustment.
Yeah, it's actually interesting because I remember when that started happening for my parents, we were kind of like coaching them to like, go on holiday by yourselves. Leave us behind. It's fine. Do it. Go reconnect. But I think, I'm in a different phase. I'm at the beginning of children. So it's completely like, I miss my time alone, So, yeah. But
you get used to that quickly as well. I mean, I made the comment earlier this morning. My father was a teacher and a headmaster. And long before I had children, he told me, children gives real meaning to your life.
Yeah.
And you will experience the same. It's a massive adjustment. It's an enormous adjustment. But it becomes part of the reason why you wake up some mornings, and when you don't want to go to work, you go to work and you work harder and you be a little bit more ambitious, because eventually you want to look after them. You're able to support them and give them all the opportunities in the world. And that gives real meaning.
Absolutely.
But I mean, funny you saying what you're saying, that you are encouraging us to just fly away. And we've been doing that to you guys to fly away. But, the fear of unknown, in the sense that you leave your kids with the house and they, you're scared that you come, they've bumped the car, they've drank all the alcohol.
But those things should also happen from time to time. How else do you learn? You can't. You must allow your kids some room to make mistakes. Really,
that mistake to drink the whole.
No, I didn't use that specific example. Mistakes can mean many things. But listen, seriously, we've all got friends, and all of them go through these life stages. And if you look at when people get divorced, for example, it's either just before kids or long after kids, because those are big adjustments. And some people are better off being apart, okay? And some of them are so independent that it's fine at that point in time.
Yeah.
And a lot of people stick around just for the sake of the kids. And that's why spending quality time together. And I look at my son now. He's now in love and all of those nice things. He's coming out of a long relationship and he's now in a more shorter, I wouldn't say shorter term, but they haven't been that long together. And he asks me, obviously, so what works and what doesn't work? And I say, listen, there are two
romantic coach.
No, I'm not that romantic, but there are two things that I take out of my own life and out of marriages that have had longevity. Is the people that listen well and the people that do things together. The doing things together. If I look at my mother passed away in 2009 after a very short stint having cancer.
Sorry about that.
Yeah, I was very close to her. But she and my dad played golf together. Okay, so that is about as much quality time as you can have, because you're at the club, that you play together, you stay there, you have the drinks together, you go home together. And that was fantastic. So if you can find stuff to do together, that'll always be there through the transition of spending a lot of time together or not. And then, of course, the ability to listen goes without saying. All the other things. And there are many other elements to a marriage, of course, like know now. But if you can listen and if you can do things together, you'll survive. Yeah. And you'll have fun.
No, absolutely. I think this is the episode that my husband has to watch. He has to see this episode.
Advice from Riaan.
Not that he's doing a bad thing, but I think there's just many parallels. Like you saying you're a CA, you worked at PwC. It's the same with him, funny enough. But you spoke about the transition from finance into
general management.
General management, and even just the switch into fast-moving consumables, right? any sort of imposter syndrome, like feelings of like, ooh, this is uncomfortable. This is unknown territory.
That's interesting. When I was a small child, I had more money than my friends because I was a wheeler and a dealer. I bought stuff and I sold stuff. Okay, I bought cheap clubs, sold them for more, bought more expensive ones, put new grips on them. My mother helped me; she could do those things and sold them. Then I started buying hi-fis, which were big in those days. You wouldn't know what that is, but it's like a tape deck and turntable and stuff. So I've always had this entrepreneurial spirit. But if you're that type of entrepreneur, you want to work with things. Okay, you take it, you do something with it, and you sell it. So for me, transitioning from the accounting world into the FMCG space was like second nature. If you think about the client base that I had as an article clerk and for a short stint as an audit manager, I had financial services as part of that portfolio. In those days, it was Boland Bank that became BOE, that later became Nedbank. Was the Boland Bank head office was in Paarl. So I had that as an audit. And if you think about industry choices and you just simply talk about remuneration, that's the industry to go to. Those people earn more than the people running manufacturing. But I couldn't associate with the fact that there's nothing to touch.
Yes.
It's somewhere in the world. I mean,
it's not tangible.
This is a bottle. I understand that there's plastic, that there's water, blow molding, blah, 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 and manufacturing. And it may cost R4 and I can sell it for R8. That I can understand that and I can associate with it.
Yeah.
But the stuff that's in the air, I mean, I'm like, wait, what does that mean? I couldn't associate with that. So that was an easy transition because I come from a very small age, a world where you can buy and sell things. So that was the first tick from an industry perspective. And then the second thing is I love food and beverages. It's visible. I absolutely love food. 90%, apart from golf, 90% of the other social occasions are something to do with where we're eating, where we're having lunch. So why wouldn't I be in the industry? What was a big adjustment for me is that my first general management job was to run the grains business of, in those days, Pioneer Foods. Now, in that business is a wheat milling. I don't bake. Maize milling. I grew up in the Western Cape. We don't eat pap. Okay, didn't eat pap. Rice I could associate with. And that's why rice was my passion in that business. But I had a massive product portfolio, big business, the biggest part of Pioneer Foods, but I couldn't associate with the products. So that was a big adjustment for me. And then as I moved across the other portfolios, obviously you get more involved with stuff that you use in your own home and that you consume in your own home. But for me, it's been a very easy transition through the industry. And I think that's why I stuck around, because I enjoy and I'm passionate about the things that we do. I mean, who wouldn't be passionate about Wellington sweet chili sauce over a cream cheese on a whatever?
Absolutely.
Are you religious?
Yes, I am. But I think the nature of religion in my house has changed. Okay, so I believe. I don't go to church often anymore. I don't see the need to do that. I can reach out. I can read the Bible. I can go to somebody if I want advice and a connection. But I think part of that has also been driven by how my children views religion and how that developed over time. So I was a Dutch Reformed Christian small baby.
Yeah.
And I think the world is, for me and our family, it has moved on. But we are religious, and we do know where to say thank you.
So, I mean, with that connection, I mean, this morning you mentioned something that was very profound. Maybe two things that kind of turned your life around in the most positive way. When you spoke about a debate or something at school, which kind of made you stand out. Do you want to share a little bit about that early rise in your life?
Yeah, we spoke about how you get to the corner office and what it needs to get to the corner office. And I called out a couple of principles. Obviously, you need a bit of talent. You enhance talent by developing skills. You have to work hard. Vince Lombardi says the only place where success comes before hard work is in the dictionary, or work. And then I said, you have to be lucky, or at least that applied to me. So in my 24 years, I've never been for a job interview. Never. I've never been interviewed for a job.
Wow.
But I've been.
Don't try this at home.
Well, you could go a roll further back. You could go 29 years if you include the Coopers, Lybrand, PwC stint. So I've never been for an interview. But there's been these 1 or 2 or 3 inflection points which kind of opened doors for me. The first one was in 1991. It was Standard 9, grade 11 now. They selected a bunch of head boys and girls who was going to be a head boy, a head girl in your matric year. It's obviously announced at the end of the year, and then you go to the Burger Jeugleierskonferensie. It's a youth conference sponsored by an Afrikaans newspaper in Cape Town, and they select 50 people from the region, 25 boys, 25 girls. And you go through the week, lots of experiences, and you've got professors and people that help you, and you need to write a speech around either what's happening in the economy or politically in the country at that point in time. Now, that was 1991. And obviously the country was going through a lot of change in 1991. I'm that transitioning generation. So I had early benefits of apartheid as a white kid in this country, but I was then facing the change.
Yes.
As a soon to get into the workforce environment. And I wrote something about the political change in the country, and they quote you do your speech, and then they quote you in the newspaper. Now it's an Afrikaans newspaper, but anyway, I'll translate loosely the piece of my speech that made it. And the piece that was quoted was, I said that the change that's happening in the country is confirmation of the realization that the white Afrikaner people in this country have been wrong over the last 43 years. Now, for a white kid to say that in 1991 in Afrikaans, and it got quoted, and you come from a town like Worcester, that was kind of like a bit of a thing. Okay? I mean, my family's never been racist, don't understand what it is. My kids only know Wims and Tannies. My dad's got friends everywhere, but still, it's in that community that little piece was quoted. And lo and behold, I think some companies looked at that and said, okay, but this is obviously a talented guy, otherwise he wouldn't have been a head boy. Some of them are a bit nerdish, but I mean, that's okay. But that clearly opened the door for me to get into the corporate world and start my journey through articles. That little piece. Now, that's luck. I mean, yeah, I truly believed it, and I truly believe it today as well. But that little piece was quoted, and it was showcased.
The soundbite.
So that was that one. In those days, there was a soundbite, exactly. So that was the one opportunity or piece of luck, timing. Timing is everything. And the other one was when I was an article clerk. Pioneer Foods acquired the Serious Beverage Company, the liquid fruit business, at that point in time. Now, when you acquire a business, there's a acquisition date balance sheet that needs to be audited and signed off. And obviously, the acquirer at that point in time wants to have all the assets as low as possible and all the liabilities as high as possible, because then you have that runway once you start incorporating the results into your own results. And the Serious company had some issues around their debtors at that point in time. And Pioneer, as the acquirer, said, no, there's risk with that debtors balance. We want to create a provision against it. Okay, so that if there's any write-offs, that we don't take the hit post the acquisition. And we were the auditors. And I was like a second-year article clerk. And we got summoned, myself and my partner, with a partner on the audit. We got summoned to Pioneer head office, and we sat in the CEO's office at that point in time. We were going to meet there, a guy by the name of Andre Hannekom. And my partner couldn't make it. He missed his flight. And it was just me. Okay, second year article clerk, CEO of the acquiring company, and we're going to talk about debtors. So Andre started the conversation, and he said, listen, blah, blah, blah. I said, no, this is what we've done. These are the substantive tests that we've done. I believe the provision is sufficient. He looked at me and he said, have you ever collected the debtors book in your entire life? Now, I'm second year article. I said, no, I haven't, but I have done the work on this book. So I stood my ground. No partner, nobody there. And Andre just looked at me and he said, when are you coming to work for me? And I said, not soon. So I declined the offer, but eventually I joined Pioneer Foods because I obviously made my name in that very small moment. And I showed up in the right way. I could have failed it. I could have buckled and got it wrong, but I didn't. And that was also a little bit of luck. So sometimes you need these divine intervention moments Yes, you do. And then that opens doors for you. So those were the two examples that we shared this morning.
So, I
A
told
little
you.
bit of luck.
Yeah. Need a little bit of
No,
luck.
of course you do. But Gary
Yeah,
Player says the
yeah.
more you practice, the luckier you get. And there's also a lot of truth in that. Sometimes you need to keep on knocking on the door, and eventually it opens. But you do get it. You get it sometimes through a lucky break.
So, moving out of luck, let's talk a little bit about how stressed you are, because you can't tell me you're not with such a big portfolio. Turnover is what, 50 billion?
No, it's going to be 50 billion rand in 2025, 6. So it's a little bit less now, but it's a large business.
Yeah, so it's a big business. I'm sure you're getting people say, "Where's my Cisco bread?
Yeah, yeah.
Where's my Doritos? Where's my Marmite?" I mean, how do you tackle stress at this level of the game?
Your ability to deal with stress, I believe, also develops over time. And I think that the biggest change that I've seen in myself is how comfortable do you get in your own skin. I come from a, would say, a starting point where I always had this fear of failure that drove me and that energized me and that made me work hard. But sometimes that's limiting in terms of your ability to deal with stress specifically, because you feel that everything has to be perfect the whole time. So I think the biggest transition for me was to be just more comfortable in my own skin as a starting point to deal with stress. And then the second realization is when you get to that point where you realize that you can't and shouldn't try and fix everything, then you become better at prioritization. And the moment you get better at prioritization, less things become important. And if you can deduce and reduce the number of things that's important, you immediately have an impact on the level of stress that you have. Because you have to accept that, listen, certain things you can't, and you need to let other people deal with it. And sometimes 85% is enough. Not everything has to be 100%. And then in terms of once stress is there, the biggest coping mechanism that I have is I go for a run.
Okay, you run away?
Well, in winter I run in the treadmill, but then I'm privileged. I live in Bosch and Golf Estate, where it's beautiful in summer to run. I haven't been running enough through some medical challenges that I've had, but more recently I'm running again. So I try and do four times a week, 6 Ks, which is enough. That's a big stress relief. And then playing the game and switching off that for half an hour, that also helps a lot. And then just having fun. I mean, there's nothing that beats good conversation and a laugh with the kids and a glass of wine.
Okay. I mean, I try to be very calm about the situation and also face a lot of stressful situations. Sometimes, life-threatening situations, because we in that space, in that world. But sometimes a lot of stuff can wait for tomorrow. So I'm the coolest dad, right?
Yeah.
So
you have to say that. We're being recorded.
He's my favorite dad. Yeah, no.
The only one. You didn't have a choice.
So yeah, that helps, and I mean I can relate to what you're saying, which is good.
You know what's fascinating is in tense or stressful situations, I often spoke more and I spoke faster, and my heart rate as a result mirrored that. But over the last 4, 5, 6 years, where I had to be more in front of people and lead more conversations, the opposite has happened. So the more stressful the situation, the slower my heart rate becomes. The more clarity I have. It's frightening. Eh?
Really?
It's
like
really frightening.
opposite.
It's like, but I think I'm not a top sportsman. I play a little bit of golf. I played cricket when I was young. I don't run well. But I think that's what top sportsmen also happens with them. That's why you've got these people like A.B. de Villiers, when the guy's bowling 150 kilometers per hour, he's got so much time because everything slows down for them in the moment. And I think there's an element of that as well. But that wasn't the case before I said, listen, you know what, I am who I am, and the world needs to adjust like I need to adjust. And everything we do with good intentions. So you can only do your best. No? That's what you can bring and do.
Yeah, I mean, I often tell staff at work that, nobody wakes up, dress up, and go to work that I'm going to mess it up. I mean,
No.
everybody starts with good intention. So if it goes wrong, it is what it is.
But
We'll
how do
fix it.
you come back from that? Because
From stuff that goes wrong.
yeah, like how do you, because you also have to inspire other people, right? And it starts with you. So your energy is important. So your bounce back and how quickly you do it. How do you do it?
I mean, maybe let me go first and then you go.
Go for it.
This show, Off the Clock, it's about also demystifying the CEO. CEO is not a robot; it's a human being.
Yeah.
He all started from the humble beginning. I'm still humble, and we make a lot of mistakes, all the time. And I mean, anybody who thinks I'm a robot, they're wrong. I mean, I've made more mistakes than a lot of people. That's why we keep coming back and getting better and better. And if somebody's messing it up at work, I'm not, me, I'm not going to be too much angry with them. It's an opportunity to coach and develop and for people to learn from those experiences.
Mistakes, yeah.
So
Yeah, I'm very competitive. Okay, so
You don't like to lose.
Second is just first of the losers. Okay, so if you are competitive, that invariably fuels high levels of resilience. Okay, now those two things together can be dangerous sometimes, and again introduce stress. But that's something I think I inherited from my mother: is you just never ever give up. Okay, but then from a values perspective, I've said sorry often. And that's some of the big debates sometimes in my house. When I'm wrong, I say sorry. And when my wife's wrong, she will discuss a little bit longer than admitting. But she is going to see this. But I have got no problem to say sorry because I didn't do it on purpose. I failed. I'm sorry. But then that competitive and resilience piece kicks in and you just never, ever give up. And you keep going. I mean, the role of a CEO is interesting. I mean, people ask me, so how would you define your job description? And I say it in jest and I joke, but there's actually quite a lot of truth in it. Is that I say you're an actor, a politician, and a cheerleader. Now, acting puts a little bit of fakeness to it sometimes, potentially, but you have to show up in different audiences in a different way. I mean, the way I spoke this morning was different than the way I'm speaking now, although there were commonalities. So you have to pick your moments, and that's the acting piece. The politician piece is, in this country, sometimes you have to engage politicians or ministries or whatever because there's a regulatory framework and all of those things. But it's also got to do with picking the right response at the right time. But ultimately, you're the cheerleader of the business. You need to bring the energy. You need to live and lead by example.
Absolutely.
Choir conductor.
Okay, mental health. It's a very, very big topic. Very big issue.
Medicine helps.
How do you deal with it? I mean, you've mentioned you run. Are those also just ways that you manage your mental?
All of them.
Okay.
Yeah. Clarity of thought is pretty important in these roles, and I think over time you recognize when you lose it, okay, and then you have to do something different. You sometimes become irrational in your own thoughts because of all the pressures and conflicting demands that you have in this role, and to truly appreciate when you potentially are, and it doesn't happen often, but sometimes you do recognize that, listen, I'm not in the state of mind now to deal with this, and I don't have to make the decision, but being able to extract yourself from it then and to go and do something else, or I'll come back to you on Monday. I think that's probably the biggest gift that you can give yourself, is to develop that ability over time.
Yeah.
And then the other things all contribute. Even a glass of wine, I think, helps in the mental health space.
Okay. Can I just ask one more question?
Go for it.
I mean, if you look back, right, or rather, if you were to meet your 20-year-old self, 10-year-old self, is there anything that you would tell them about now, advise them? Like what would you tell your 20-year-old self?
It's not as serious as you think it is.
Okay.
I've told you about fear of failure and those type of things. It's not it's not as serious, and it's not the end of the world. You are allowed to fail.
I like that.
Cool. One more question before I allow you to maybe ask us one or two questions and parting shots. You've been through many phases of your career, which sound very simple, but I'm sure it was challenging, just judging from the grinch on your face when you tell about second year Glock meeting the CEO Honeycomb. What have you taken away with you from those experiences?
There's a couple of standouts for me, and I shared one this morning. It was when we bought the SAD business, and I walked in there. That was in 2002, so I was 27, turning on 28. And the SAD business has just become a company. It was a cooperative, dried fruit farmers, some other agricultural industries. And typically in the old cooperative world, just based on where those companies came from, you walked in there and you met people that been working there for 35 years. Most of them were white and Afrikaans speaking people. So I walked in there 27 years old, and everybody got told this is going to be the new financial director of this company, because the incumbent was 55 and he resigned the previous Friday and said he's not going to work with the new crowd.
Send you.
So I walked in there, and you could see, when people look at you with that expression, that three letters starting with a W, that was what I walked into. And I realized, thankfully, that there's only one way to build trust. It's not going to come through a title. It's going to come through rolling up your sleeves, getting stuck in, and to establish trust relationships. So one of my leadership principles is you need to touch the heart before you can ask the hand. So that was a very powerful learning piece in my career. Since then, there's been obviously lots of examples where very intelligent senior leaders have come across in ways that I didn't agree with the how, never the what. The what's always clear, because we all run similar type of businesses, but the how, in terms of either being aggressive or the communication style or being too forceful in certain situations, we all come across that somewhere in the industry.
It's common.
And that's been probably the second biggest learning for me, is that you can have the best intentions, but if you don't deliver it in the right way, and I've gotten it wrong at times. I do get passionate, as many people. But that's probably been the second big learning for me. And then the third one, not necessarily related to leadership, but is to recognize that although the environment have changed a lot, we've gone from, it's a little bit like listening to Sean Summers when you speak about, we had 60/60 with the home delivery, with the phone and the book and the bicycle that delivered the stuff.
Yeah.
There's actually some truth in that. Although the environment have changed, the principles of business have not changed. So you can go back, look back into history, and understand and spend time. It may look new to you today, but it happened before in our industry and in our business, but the circumstances were different. So I spend a lot of time listening to people with a lot of experience in the business. You don't have to do what they tell you. You don't. You're the boss. But go and listen, because they have seen it before in some shape, manner, or form.
Yeah.
And go and learn from those experiences. So those were I'd call it the three things that stands out.
All right, cool. Any questions to us and parting shots? We've been grilling you.
No, not at all. Not at all. How's your dad?
How is he?
Yeah, how's he at home? Because I've seen him now in the work environment. But what is Peter like at home?
So it's interesting. I think he is a CEO in nature. Like that's who he has become. So like whenever there is a thing that we need to plan, like a Mother's Day, he'll call me as the firstborn child to say, that Mother's Day is coming up. These are the expectations. Please liaise with your brother. I will call you in
so he's
3
the CEO
business
at
days.
Home as well.
Yeah, he's the CEO at home, dad kind of guy.
Through and through.
Through and through.
Okay.
But it's nice. We learn leadership from him. So, and how to sort of manage different stakeholders. I see it in different settings, even like, maybe I might regret this, but in the Lobola, like very strategic thinking.
Okay.
And so he's definitely CEO through and through. But a very, very nice guy.
That's interesting. My family keeps me humble. They would tell me, listen, you're not the CEO of this house, so bring the CEO. But that leadership cannot be hidden. It shows up. I consciously try not to lead too much at home. One, because it's part of my release mechanism, because I carry the burden of 12,000 people and their well-being. These guys just deal with this. But if it's needed, I'll step in, and I do step in. I do step in a lot. But for me, it's a little bit the opposite. I try and let go a little bit when I'm at home.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I must say,
no. That was her question.
No, but
going to your question.
But my son and my daughter are very different in personality, which is good. I've also been reminded that we just want a father, not a CEO. So
no, for sure.
Which is fine.
So my question to you is, if you can call out, I mean, you see yourself in your children. I'm sure you experience the same, the good and the bad.
Yeah.
So if you can call out, what is the one thing you see in your son that you truly admire, that you know is a strength of yourself, and what is the same for your daughter? If you look at them and you think about what do you associate with as one of your strengths that you are glad that they've got?
These are some good questions, Riaan.
I wanted to ask the other one, but the opposite one, but I'll leave that.
Look,
I want to leave you eventually.
I think one is, they are different personalities.
Yeah.
And
so
I think
the answer could be different.
Yeah, it's different because I think my daughter's kind of, you can see she took my personality, and my son took a little bit of me and the mother. And I like the fact that when it's needed, he can be, very calm, and I think that is good, and getting things done. And what I see in my daughter that I think she took from me, which she must be happy, is the level of calmness and diplomacy. The way I differentiate them is my son is more, direct shooter, and my daughter will kind of be politically correct when the situation is heating up. To be simple and direct is she won't put petrol to the fire. She will always think about, and my son, if you want the truth, he will give it to you.
It's interesting. If you look at my two children, I'm glad that my daughter got my directness and my toughness, because I think that'll stand the female in a corporate world well.
Absolutely.
And my son is absolutely this gift to his mother and whoever marries him one day, because he's extremely considerate, like my wife. So he's the one that would walk into the house and say, "Mom, are you okay?" And then I wouldn't even recognize that something was wrong. So it's lovely to see how you see yourself in your children.
Yeah.
Thanks.
So thank you very much. I know you have to run.
Yeah.
I really appreciate and enjoyed this. This really exceeded my expectation.
And thanks, Peter. Thanks for having me. Lovely meeting you guys.
Spending
really
the day
great
with you has
meeting you.
been one of a kind. I feel, I've been in therapy the whole day.
Oh, wonderful. You must send this to my wife.
So
she's got different views. Thank you, Peter. Thank you so much. Thanks.